Okay, picture this. You've been given a massive job. You have to design a brand new society from the ground up, and you've got to make it perfectly fair. So, where do you even start? What rules do you make? It's a huge question, right? But luckily, we're not going in blind. We're going to let the political philosopher John Rawls be our guide. His theory, known as justice as fairness, is one of the most powerful blueprints for a just society ever created.
So here's the plan. First, we're going to look at Rawls's incredible thought experiment for getting rid of our personal biases. Then, from that fair starting point, we'll see what two principles of justice he thinks we'd all agree on. After that, we'll dig into why one of those principles has to come first, no exceptions. And finally, we'll ask the big question: what does this whole philosophical blueprint actually mean for us today?
All right, let's dive right in. How do we even begin to think about what's fair when we all have our own unique experiences, our own advantages and disadvantages? Well, that brings us to Rawls's ingenious solution, the ultimate fairness test. Seriously, think about that for a second. It's harder than it sounds. If you're a high earner, you might lean towards rules that favor low taxes. If you face discrimination, you're probably going to want strong protections for minority groups. See? Our own lives, our own circumstances, they bias us. Rawls knew this was a problem, and he came up with a way to press the reset button on that bias. He asks us to imagine we're all in what he calls the original position. Now, this isn't a real place in history. It's a thought experiment. It's like a hypothetical constitutional convention, where everyone gets together to decide on the most fundamental rules of society, the rules of the game. And here's the magic trick. This is the real genius of it. To make sure nobody rigs the rules in their own favor, everyone in this original position has to make their choice from behind a veil of ignorance. Behind this veil, you are totally in the dark about who you will be in the society you're creating. You don't know if you'll be rich or poor. You don't know your race, your gender, your natural abilities, whether you'll be a brilliant scientist or someone who needs a lot of help. You don't even know what your core beliefs will be. Basically, everything that makes you you is temporarily erased. And from that position of total ignorance, you have to pick the rules, knowing you could end up as anyone. So if you're in that situation, completely stripped of your personal biases, what kind of society would you choose to build? This gets us to the absolute heart of Rawls's theory, the two principles of justice that he argued any sane, rational person would agree to. Well, the very first thing you're going to do is protect yourself, right? You're not going to risk living in a society where you could be persecuted or have no say in your own life. So the number one top priority principle everyone would agree on is a rock-solid guarantee of equal basic liberties for every single person. And we're not talking about some vague, fluffy idea of freedom here. Rawls is talking about concrete, essential rights. Things like freedom of thought and the right to associate with whomever you want, freedom of speech, the right to vote and run for office, and having your rights protected by a fair legal system. These are the absolute non-negotiables. And in Rawls's own, more formal words, each person has the same indefeasible claim to these liberties. Indefeasible just means it can't be taken away. It's an ironclad guarantee. And the crucial part is that your freedoms can't trample on anyone else's. Everyone gets the same comprehensive package of rights. This is the foundation. Okay, so everyone's basic rights are locked in. Check. What's next? Well, now we have to deal with the messy stuff: money, jobs, social status. We all know that in any society, some people are going to end up with more than others. So how do we handle that fairly? Rawls's second principle tackles this head on, and it's got two key parts. The first part is something called fair equality of opportunity. This means that any social or economic inequalities have to be tied to positions and jobs that are open to everyone. And it's more than just saying no discrimination. It means that where you start in life shouldn't dictate where you end up. Two people with the same talent and the same ambition should have the same shot at success, whether they were born in a mansion or a shack. And that, of course, requires things like good schools for everybody. But it's the second part of this principle that's the real game changer. It's the most famous bit of Rawls's entire philosophy, and it's called the difference principle. It gives us a fascinating answer to the question, when is it actually fair for some people to have more than others? Okay, let's look at this table. You're behind the veil, and you have to pick one of these societies to be born into, but you don't know which slot you'll get. Society A is perfectly equal. Everyone gets 10K. Seems safe, but look at Society C. Yeah, it's got huge inequality, but the person at the very bottom is making 30K. That's way better than the 10K you'd get in the equal society. Rawls says you choose C. Why? Because you don't want to risk being at the bottom of Society A or B. You choose the system that makes the worst-case scenario as good as it can possibly be. You maximize the minimum outcome. It's a maximum strategy. So this is the big takeaway. Inequality isn't automatically unjust. In fact, it can be a good thing. It can drive innovation and create wealth that lifts everybody up. But, and this is a huge but, it is only, and I mean only, justified if that system of inequality works to the greatest possible benefit of the people at the very bottom. You can have billionaires, but only if the economic engine that produces them also pulls the poorest person up as high as they can go.
So now we have our two big principles, one for liberty, one for inequality. But Rawls was crystal clear that you can't just mix and match them. You can't treat them like a buffet. They come in a strict, unbreakable order. He called this lexical priority, which sounds fancy, but it's a simple idea. It's like levels in a video game. You cannot get to level 2 until you have beaten level 1. So step 1, first and forever, is securing those equal basic liberties for all. Only when that is done can you move to step 2, ensuring fair equality of opportunity. And only after both of those are satisfied can you start using the difference principle from step 3 to arrange economic inequalities. You can never trade freedom for money, period. Now, why is this order so important? Because it puts up a giant firewall against ideas like utilitarianism. You know, the whole greatest good for the greatest number thing? A utilitarian might say it's okay to violate the rights of a few people if it makes the majority happy. But from behind the veil, you'd never agree to that deal. Why? Because you might end up being one of those few people. You would never take that intolerable risk. For Rawls, your basic rights are absolute. They are not up for negotiation.
Okay, so that's a lot of philosophy. But this isn't just an abstract mind game, so let's bring it home. Why does any of this matter in the real world, right now?
Well, because Rawls intended these principles to be a practical tool, a yardstick for judging the basic structure of our society. That means our biggest, most important institutions, our constitution, our legal system, how our economy works, even social structures like the family. We can hold them up against these principles and ask, are they really fair? And that leaves us with a final and pretty challenging question to ask ourselves. We live in a world with massive inequalities. The Rawlsian question is not, is there inequality? The question is that inequality working to the greatest possible advantage of the least well-off people in our society? Is our system raising the floor for everyone, or is it just benefiting those already at the top? According to Rawls, that's the real test of a just society.